There we go.
Peace and grand rising to the air. Welcome, Empress, by the way. Today is November the 29th, 2020 on the Greco-Roman or Gregorian calendar. It's 1441 on the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine moon calendar. And it's 1440 on the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine sun calendar. We have quite a few things that we want to discuss and talk about among the nations. The first thing that we want to put forth is that on December the 13th, 14th, and 15th, we're going to be doing a nationwide water-only 3-day fast for those who can do that. For those who may have issues where they can't do a 3-day water-only fast, if you will fast from something in some way, that would be great, just so that we're in alignment, or fast from some entertainment, something that we do, fast from television, or fast from meat only, or fast from complaining, or fast from gossiping, or fast from something that seems to be a reflex, but that you know that it's something that you are ready to evolve away from, that you're ready to rise from it. So again, December 13th, 14th, and 15th. And the reason we chose those days, there's so much I could say about where we are right now in terms of our national, international, universal, and governmental goals that we do, that we've been just knocking out of the universe, really. We're approaching, well, on the 14th of December, there will be a total eclipse on that day. In fact, let me just look at my notes. That is the new moon. December the 14th is the new moon. And there will be a total solar eclipse on that day. And so the day before the total solar eclipse, the day of the new moon, and the day after the new moon, we want to honor our ancestral energies with a fast, water only, for those 3 days. And for those who want to fast longer than that, feel free to do that. I'm considering going a little longer than that. Over the last month, I've done 2 3-day water-only fasts, and I think I'm ready to go a little further. So drink lots and lots and lots and lots of water. Every time you turn around, drink water. Every time you think about food, drink water. Lots of it. Drink as much as you can, because our prophet mentioned water, keeping our bodies clean with water, but there's an even greater science behind that. He knew the science, and we honor that. There's a greater science behind it in terms of all that we are seeking to manifest can be made manifest when we clear our energies and fast, so that the ancestors can give us the answers to what it is that we need. That is how we get the majority of the information that we get. It is revealed from the Akashic records that are stored in our cellular memory. Everyone, we've heard that cells have memory. That is the truth. And our cells in particular are ancient cells. And so the information that we get is always given and then we demonstrate the information, and then we start seeing the manifestations that the information that we got, number one, was correct and straight from the ancestors, and number two, that many have known the information, Grand Rising, and many have known the information, but they were under oath not to say anything about the information until we said it. And then when we said it, they are then able to confess the truth. Okay. So we want to join the cosmos in, again, welcoming the ancestral energies back to the earth. They never left the earth, but we were asleep to them, and now we want to welcome them back because we missed them, and we're glad that the ancestral energies are here and they're activated within us and they're alive, just like we're alive. We've always been that, but now we know for sure. Okay. The new moon also on the 14th is going to be joined by Mercury. Mercury relates to how we think and how we communicate. Okay, so there'll be some communications that'll be going out over that time period with regards to communicating with the other nations and governments of the earth who are original, indigenous, natural, divine. We are not ever going to be talking to the corporates because we don't have a reason to talk to them. We just give them commands to move on out of the way because we're here. So we are Grand Rising. So we are going to be fasting, and along with that fast, just bringing in the ancestral energies as well. Next, make sure that we are seeing what we need to see on the screen. Okay. So we know that we are Grand Rising Empress. Welcome. We know that we are the gods of the earth. We know that. And the gods of the universe too. If we are gods, we have to do what gods do. We should do what gods do. Well, in all of the writings about the gods would create things, and then they would name those things that they created. The gods did this, which is our ancestors, did this repeatedly so that we would know how to be gods when it came time for us to wake up and be ourselves. And so we start the process of evolving into our godness by first coming, Grand Rising, by first coming alive, okay, and only we could make ourselves wake up. No one else can do that. We had to consent and agree to waking up. Islam Empress Minnie, I'm so excited about that. Our continental flag, Islam. But again, the mother flag, which is the one behind me here with the red with the green 5-pointed star, that is our mother flag. It will never change. That will be our primary flag at all times, and it will never change. That's our flag. That's the flag of our nation and our government, Islam. And so we start the process of evolving into our godness by first coming alive and then creating and looking around and seeing what is it that's in our dominion, okay? And then we first call ourselves by our new appellation, okay? So our first responsibility as gods is to properly identify ourselves as the gods. And the way to do that is to declare and proclaim our sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine Moorish American nationality. That is how we proclaim who we are. No one can do that for us. We must do it for ourselves. And no one will wake up until they are ready. None of us woke up until we actually consented and agreed to wake up. We saw the information and something in us said, look at that information because that's about you. And it hit the truth center and we began to seek more information about who we were and who we are. So we wake up, we call ourselves by our new appellation, and that's the first thing God does is say, hey, I'm God. God is here. And now let me look around. Then we begin giving life to everything around us. And we give our surroundings, which is our vast estate, new appellations. We start waking everything else around us up and giving it life. Okay? We give life to our children by calling them the heirs, the nobles, the Moors, the empresses, the emperors, the living, etc., instead of calling them kids. Because goats and animals have kids. We don't have kids. We have heirs. And that is the first sign of life, is we wake our heirs up by calling them by what they really are and who they really are. So then you've given life to yourself first. See, only God can give life to his or herself. And then you give life to your heirs and your kin by calling them the heirs and calling them by their proper sovereign status, putting them in their proper place as the heirs. Okay? And every time we correctly call them by their living titles, we breathe new life into them and even into all who witness us calling one another who we really are. We're casting and breaking spells on the people around us by properly identifying ourselves and those who are our heirs and our kin. So it is by our words that new life is breathed into everything and everyone. By our words, we change and upgrade and uplift the frequency. And I like the word frequency because it begins with the word free. We're free by changing the frequency, and only we have the authority to do that. Only the Moors, the heirs, the bloodline and the birthright. We change and upgrade and uplift the frequency of the air and the atmosphere around us when we terminate all corporate contracts, which is a renaming process. Termination of all corporate contracts is a renaming process. We start telling those fake corpses that they're fired and that we don't need them anymore because they're putting death over that which is living. And so when we terminate the corporate contract, we say, okay, this bank account is not a corporate bank account. Okay? It's not a corporate bank account. It is a living sovereign resource account. That's what it is. And then guess what? It becomes that. And it's no longer transferring fiat back and forth and meaningless, worthless garbage back and forth. It's actually transferring sovereign resources back and forth. And then it changes. It changes its behavior. It even changes the way it looks. And we've talked about that, about the changes that we've seen in those things that were previously called corporate bank accounts, but now they are sovereign resource accounts. We see the changes. The vibrations are higher, and those vibrations go wherever we go, speaking life. We speak life into everything by calling our bodies temples. Houses then become domiciles under our dominion, and domicile and dominion are derivatives one of the other. And those two words are derivatives of the word dome, and dome actually means head. So what's going on in here determines what has life out there. That determines our dominion and our domicile. Blacks then become Moors. That's important. Fiat becomes sovereign credit, and it actually doesn't become it. We speak anew to the resource, and it becomes what it was, what it always was, because we've always been Moors. We've never been blacks, Negroes, coloreds, African Americans. We've never been those. We've always had a nationality, a bloodline, a birthright. Cars become conveyances. All black ink becomes blood red. All capital letters become lowercase in capitis diminutio nolo. U.S. citizens become subjects or slaves or Slavs or stateless. And we step out of that. We are not that. We become the law and the government. And we've always been that. We're just naming things properly now. We're calling it what it really is. Corporate capitalism becomes non-existent. As we are speaking life to all that is ours, a change happens where all corporate things are concerned. And I want to show you a little bit more about those changes, that now that we have stated who we are properly and competently on the public record, let me show you some of the life that is being breathed into our resources. Now, we know that all corporations started out as companies, and we know that they were using our credit to do all the things that they've been doing. We know that. Let's prove that they've been using our credit and all lowercase letters to get started. Let's prove that. Okay. I'll prove it right here. Hold on just a second. All right. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
Islam.
Yes, Islam.
Okay. Do you see there how Apple really started out? That was at the beginning. That was at the party that we weren't invited to. That was at the initial. We were not invited to that one. Why? Because we had already signed away consent. They don't have to invite us to that stuff. We're not supposed to know that they're using our credit. We're not supposed to know that. That's Apple Computer in all lowercase letters. Here's Intel in all lowercase letters. Let's keep going. Here is Saudi Aramco. Oil. It is the largest oil company in the world until we get it back into our control, which it really never left our control. We just went to sleep for a little while. But they have known that all of this belongs to us from the very beginning. Let's keep going. Citibank, always been. Except when you go to the websites of some of these, they had to capitalize it in order to keep using it while we were asleep. They had to. But it had to start out with our consent in all lowercase letters. Now remember, their systems do not speak to all lowercase letters, not the jail systems and the policy enforcer systems and the war rants and the fake courts and all of that. And the bill collectors, they have to use capital letters with the debt. But when they're talking about the creditors, okay, when they're talking about the creditors, that's in all lowercase letters. And hopefully you all can see, let me just continue to hit the share button here. Okay, good. It's still showing on the screen. Yes, in the chat, when they fail to prove using uppercase, they die. Yes, absolutely. Let me pull up a few more of these here on this document. Oh, U.S. Bank, Twitter, Facebook, Salesforce. Yes, Facebook used our sovereign status to do what they did. So we do own Facebook. It's never not been ours. And when we say it's the public record, it's the public record because we said it is. Yes. No wealth is created without first going through us. No wealth. And I mean none. Let's continue. The grocery stores. Kroger went from the one on the left to the one on the right in all lowercase letters. Now remember, they started out this way, and then they went to capital letters, and now when we started leaning everybody, they have to go back.
Hey, Portia, you're going to kiss your VAP.
They have to go back. Why do they have to go back? Because the heirs have arrived. We're awake, and we're here to claim that which started out using our credit in the first place. And when we say, okay, we're ready. And the thing is, we don't have to cut it off. What we have to do though is become competent to use it. Those are our resources. That's why we gave them the Constitution, so they could follow it when it came time for us to wake up and enforce it. Let's continue. Look who's changing from capital letters to all lowercase letters. It has everything to do with they started out in all lowercase letters because guess what? We consented. Yes, in the chat. Turn water to wine, debt to credit. Absolutely, that's what's happening. And when we lean them, they have to go back. They have to do what we tell them. We're not making this up. We're not making it up. We can prove it. Yes, Bitcoin started out in all lowercase letters. You see that there? So people have been asking about Bitcoin. We lean Bitcoin. Yes. And some of them never left lowercase letters. They're just not in red. And the ones that did not leave lowercase letters, generally they had one of us in there somewhere in a higher up position who knew what was going on. Some wanted to stay in honor. You see. Yes. There it is. Well, someone in the chat just said Airbnb is lowercase in red. Guess why? They're using our property. Every Airbnb belongs to the heirs already. Come on, heirs. That's our stuff. And they know it. Been known it. From the very beginning. Airbnb had to be in red and all lowercase letters because they're using Moorish properties. Yes, Airbnb, H-E-I-R-B-N-B. It belongs to us. All those properties belong to us. Anybody putting properties up, they knew we were going to come back and wake up and claim everything that belongs to us. They knew that. So that's why we say that when we're competent and we're peaceful, they're going to do exactly what they're supposed to do. We don't even have to worry about them. When we created them, we put a check in them. When we created them, we put the checks in them that said, when we wake up competently and we're peaceful, you stand down. And in fact, sit. That's what we said. And they will do that. The only time they start cutting up and acting crazy and trying to throw folks in jail and all that is when we're not competent or we're not peaceful. And usually it's a little bit of both, sometimes it's, and that's okay too. We were going to be tested anyway.
Hey, Pauline, I'm claiming my Moorish nationality tonight.
I know you are. But you're not a Moor. I know, and we knew all along when you first started coming in here that that's what you wanted. We love you anyway. But you must be of the bloodline and birthright. Peace and grand rising to you. The meeting is actually for the heirs. So let us continue. So heirs, as you can see, and again, remember, once we got to a certain point, we knew that even the one that just came in here was going to cool his jets. We knew that. Once we got to a certain point, that's why we weren't worried about him in the first place. Because he just told you what he wanted. We love them. We created them. And like I said, when we are competent and peaceful, they will get right on in line, just like he just did, talking about he wants to be us. We know that.
Are you going to send your clownish vanguard to get me, Pauline?
No, we know that. We know you want to be us. We know that. We love you still. And you still do have to stay out of our meetings. So, yes, in the chat, all of that. Let me make sure that you all can see some of the other things that I'm putting on the screen here as well. Okay, can you still see the all lowercase logos and things? I want to be sure.
Islam, great. Okay. So, again, when we wake up and start properly naming things, I'm not sure, Justice Tunica, why you cannot see it. I'm not sure because the heirs can see it so far. So it may be, you may need to sign out and sign back in. If you're going to do that, let me know so that I can open the meeting back up. Yeah, they're saying in the chat they can see. They can see what's on the screen. But again, heirs, the majority of these corporations could not get in their proper status because we weren't in ours. We had to get in our proper status. We had to. And now that we're in our proper status and we're competent, then they can go back to what they need to go back to, which is subject status, which is where they prefer to be, by the way. That's not derogatory. That's where they want to be, because that's where their reward is. So the more we breathe life into ourselves by renaming things and calling it back what it is, Microsoft is still Microsoft in all lowercase letters. It started out that way too, but they're not going to show you the initial incorporation papers. They're not going to show you that. We're not invited to the initial public offering because that paperwork is there too. And they have to do what they were doing outside of our purview. And again, once we start leaning all of these, you know, once we started doing the liens and the court actions and everything, everyone has to get in their rightful place. We've been saying that, and we're going to continue to say that because it's the truth. They have to get in their rightful place just like we do. And again, nothing would have gotten out of place if we hadn't consented. So we have a part to play in this, and it's actually the most important part. We have to stay in our sovereign status so that they will continue getting in their rightful place. And that entails calling things what they really are. We have to call it what it is. We have to call ourselves what we are and who we are, rather, and call them who they are. It's okay. We're not trying to be offensive when we tell them who they are. You know, were you going to say something, Justice Tariq? I'm sorry. Yes, in the chat. That's what governing is. So we're going to be continuing to name things and call things as they should be, putting them in red in all lowercase letters. That is what our job, that's our responsibility, to nationalize everything. Because that's what this really is nationalizing all resources. Okay? Bank accounts are not corporate bank accounts. They're sovereign resource accounts. When we terminate the corporate contracts and nationalize the bank. And when we nationalize the bank, we're nationalizing the process for ourselves. We must be competent to do that. It's easy to do. The termination of corporate contracts and proclaiming nationality in red in all lowercase letters. So the more we breathe life into the things that we use, the resources that we need, and breathing life into it is giving it red blood marking and sovereign status. Bank accounts can be living sovereign resources. Conveyances is a living sovereign property because it carries living currency, which is us, living energy in it. That's in a totally different jurisdiction than the dead. Okay? Okay, we have a little bit of an infiltration going on in here. Let me put that one out. Let's see. Nope, you're out of here. Goodbye. Nope, you're out of here. Bye. Nope, quiet. Be quiet. And I know it's another sleeper in here. I see him. I'm not going to put him out yet, but at some point you will be out of here. As soon as you open your mouth, you're out. So we are breathing life into ourselves, our kin, our property, and the more we realize that the corporations are not living, the more we will be inclined and given the divine urge to fire them. And remember, the corporations are not what they said, what they told us they were. Okay? We have to know that the foreign Christian, in all capital letters, hybrid commercial mercenaries work really hard to put their face on our resources and systems so that we would not know the difference between the two. During their psychological operations campaign, they used television, animal education systems, and their neighborhood ground-level military operatives, such as store clerks, bank tellers, policy enforcers, those pushing masks and carrying on, store managers. Those are ground-level military operatives. Those are the corporations and corpses. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Those are the corpses. The resources and the physical property is ours. But they work really hard to put their faces in front of our stuff so that we will be confused as to who we're firing. And so they put their faces on over our resources to attempt to make the sovereign heirs think that our sovereign resources were governed by them, when they're not. They're governed by us. They put many war commercials in between their television programming that said things like, "We are Bank of America," or "We are your neighborhood grocery store," or "We feed America," blah, 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 blah. Okay? They did that. They put themselves in between and then fed us the garbage that they govern it when they don't. And so our job is going to be to remove those foreign faces, corpses, off of our stuff, off the grocery stores and off of all the things that belong to us. That's our stuff. And no, we're not going to wear a mask to get to our stuff. How do we do that? Terminate all corporate contracts and then proclaim who we are, and then don't use them at all. Don't use the foreign quote unquote people in there. Don't use them as often as you cannot use them. Because everything on our land can be done without that, without using them, without going through them. We can do it electronically. We can do it online. When we go into the grocery stores, we can go through self-help, self-serve. That's what it's there for. And when we go through self-serve, guess what? They don't put the corporate covering over that which is ours. And we're using sovereign credits when we swipe our card because our bank accounts are now sovereign resource accounts, because we cut off all communication and cut off all contracts with those doing business as the bank. They were doing business as the bank, but they're not the bank. We're the bank. And this is how we have to proceed from this point so that we can continue to step right into everything that is ours. We're seeing the changes happening over our resources because of the demonstrations of the heirs. Just like that, those demonstrations, peacefully competent demonstrations. Yes, we are the All Empress Portia. We are that. We are the all. And so the foreigners, whenever they would say, we feed America, we are this and we are that. And then they would show a colonizer on the commercial smiling and welcoming you into your own estate, saying, "Come in, I'll help you with your estate." And then they do just a little bit, get a little contract signed, and then they go to clowning and violating and acting crazy. That must end for all of us. Each one of us has to do it. So no one else can do that for you. You actually have to do it for yourself. We know how to do it. We know how to do it. Okay? Everything can be done without them. And so now I have a question for the heirs. I have a question for each one of you to think about, and you can star 6 if you want to respond to it, because the question is worth asking, and it's worth us thinking about. Name one thing that we do on our land that we cannot do without foreign colonizing commercial mercenaries. Name one thing on our land that we need, that we have to do, that we cannot do without them. And if anybody in here can name one of them, I don't know what I'll do. I'll take you to lunch when you come here. I'll take you to lunch when you come here. If you can name one thing that we need on our land, that we have to have them to do for us.
Trust.
Say it again. Say again.
Trust.
Contract. We can contract with one another. We don't need them. And in fact, that's where we're going. We're going to be contracting with one another, but we can't contract with one another in honor when we have contract with the dead. That's why we have to cut the contracts off with the dead. That's why we had to do that. Exactly. In the chat, there is nothing we cannot do ourselves. Nothing. Justice Jeremiah said, we cannot sentence them to Guantanamo. Yes, we can. They don't have to be present either. Right. Empress Minnie said there's a million things they need from us, but nothing we need from them. Correct. And that's where we have to go. That's where we're headed, and that's where they, come on now. We already know. We have to go there. And in fact, we're there already. So now that we put the question out there, I want to switch gears just a little bit, and give you a random fact. Something that I learned just this week. I knew it in my spirit, but I found confirmation of it and affirmation of it in the dictionary. Random fact. A coffin, coffins that you use for funerals that dead people are buried in? Okay. A coffin is defined as a basket. A basket. Every time they pass the basket at the church and you place your medium of exchange in the coffin, what have you done? Our wealth is an extension of us. We back it. And that is why they, the Pope of Rome, in all capital letters, because we know we're the Pope in red and all lowercase letters. But the popes and the preachers are called money changers. When we agree to be dead by putting the extension of ourselves in the basket coffin, then guess what they do? Write the names in all lowercase letters, say we're dead, and they take the living credit. And we thought we were just helping out the preacher. We thought we were helping out the poor. No. We've been claiming to be dead. That's why they keep track of all of that. And at the end of the year, you get a death certificate tax statement saying you agreed to the tune of however much is on there, how much fiat, debt notes, you agreed and consented to be dead, and now the Pope can claim to be you and be alive. See, Grandma putting her change into the church basket did not know that. We know she didn't know it. And that's all right, Grandma. We forgive you, we love you, and we got you. We got you. We're going to take care of that. We got it fixed. We got it together. And that's because Grandma raised Mama right and Mama's raised us right. Islam. Also, your wealth implies your condition or state of being. So when you place it in the coffin, you're making a statement about your state of being, your condition. Okay. So now, that's that. It is ritual magic. All the little things that we thought. Yes. In the chat, Justice Ngozi says, that's why at some point I would give that basket to the next person without putting any funds in it. Sometimes they would pass the basket 2 or 3 times if they didn't get enough. They need some more dead folks, some more living consenting to be dead. And guess what? Guess who made up the most population there? The matriarch.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We did that. And we have to fix the money changer piece. No one can fix that piece but us because we birthed the nation. It's our job to fix it. So we don't worry about the ones that are still, and that's, again, another reason why all of that stuff has come to a halt for the most part. Is because when we say we're alive, they can't keep doing that. You can't keep passing the basket when only dead people, because see, again, the foreigners are dead. They're dead. And let's just admit that. They're dead. And you have to have at least one living being in that church in order for them to continue. And as long as there's one more going there and putting something in that basket willingly, they can continue to operate for a minute. But see, even that's coming to a halt because there's too many of us awake. Yes, in the chat, Justice Frank said they call it the building fund. Well, all right then. We're sitting up building their kingdom when we're supposed to be over here building our nation and our government. And they knew that. They knew that. And that's why we're doing exactly what we're doing right now. Islam. Now, I want to switch gears again a little bit here on, first, are there any questions about that, about any of what has been said thus far? Any questions about that? Okay. The Second Amendment. Now, we've been hearing a lot about the Second Amendment. And I want to, the ancestors, when it's time for us to learn something, they will definitely show it to us. They'll tell us what we need to know. So I want to take a moment to ask, how many of you or has anyone read the Second Amendment, and do you know what it's really saying? And can someone pull it up and read it? Because this is a key. It's a key, definitely a key.
You gonna send your Morse Palm Guard to get me?
Just a moment. Yeah, there's the sleeper. I knew you were a sleeper. You want to be a Moor?
Islam, we love you. We didn't create you that way, though.
Right.
We love you. All right. You want to? Did you? Okay. Did you want to read it?
Yes, Empress, I'll read it.
Islam.
It says the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects the right to keep and bear arms. It was ratified on December 15, 1791, along with 9 other articles of the Bill of Rights. In District of Columbia versus Heller, the Supreme Court affirmed for the first time that the right belongs to individuals for self-defense in the home, while also including as dicta that right is not unlimited and does not preclude the existence of certain long-standing prohibitions, such as those forbidding the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or restrictions on the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons, period. In McDonald versus City of Chicago, the Supreme Court ruled that the state and local governments are limited to the same exact extent as the federal government from infringing upon this right.
Okay. That is a summary, and in reality, that is the summary. That's the narrative that they want us to go with, but that's not actually the correct narrative.
Islam.
Islam.
On the Constitution, it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Amendment second.
That's it. That's it.
Islam.
That is what the Second Amendment. I have often heard the foreigners on our land say things like, when they come for our guns, the revolution has begun. When they come for our guns, the revolution has begun. I heard them say that, and I'm thinking, who's coming for your guns, and who has the authority to command you to give them the guns, and is this going to be a bloody affair, and where am I going to be hiding when all of this takes place? You know, that's what I used to think until recently. As with all that we initially gave to the colonizers, they mistranslated the Second Amendment. And they make subtle mistranslations to make it say something totally different from what it really says. But fortunately, as we decapitalize and decolonize the document with our own hand, we make it say what we want it to say and what it was initially meant to say by our ancestors. And we know what it was meant to say because we know what our ancestors stood for. And we have our Akashic records to go by. Believe it or not, and this is not even about feelings and beliefs, it's about the law. The fact is that there's not going to be a single drop of blood shed for foreign Christian colonizing commercial mercenaries to put their guns away. Turn them in, throw them away, melt them down, whatever the case may be. Not a single drop of blood will be shed. Because we can read now. And in reality, if we stay focused on nation building, which we will, we won't even notice that the guns are nowhere around.
They're not going to be anywhere around. So what am I saying? Well, let's look at the Second Amendment and read and understand it competently, because just like the biblioteleotext, it has been completely and severely misinterpreted by animals who are not competent to govern our vast estate. This is what the Second Amendment really says. The Second Amendment really says the following. And I'm going somewhere with this because it has everything to do with where we're going next and what our nation is doing. It doesn't have anything to do with Albions and foreigners because we're not even worried about them. They're not a problem. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, is the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. That's really what it says. I'll read it again. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, is the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. What am I saying? It's saying, first of all, that a militia shall be well regulated, like the Vanguard. We're already well regulated, I'll tell you that. We've already had our first major national event, and we had 0 incidents and 0 disturbances of the peace and 0 safety issues, 0. And we didn't really even feel like we were working, really, because the spirit was there. So we're already well regulated. We're not going to be regulating Albion foreigners. That's going to be a major part of what we're doing. We don't have to worry about them. They got policy enforcers. The policy enforcers' job is to take them and their citizens out of here when we stand and govern ourselves. And that is why we were able to go on October 31st in a large group. It was 20 or more Moors there without masks. We didn't have to worry about policy enforcers showing up. We were on our own land because we put it on the public record that the Moorish law enforcement is on duty. And then we're just governing ourselves. We didn't have to govern any foreigners, hybrid. We didn't have to govern them. And so being necessary, okay, a militia is necessary. We got to know what militia means, know what that means. It's necessary to the security of a free state. They're not a free state. They're not free, and they're not a state. They are a corporation. And it is the right of the people. Who are the people? We are the people, not them. We're the people. There are no others but us. So the reason I brought this up is because there's something we really need to know about them and their guns. The only reason that they put all that emphasis on guns, and the only reason they've been allowed to carry guns and have guns on our land, is because we were not a well-regulated militia governing ourselves. So they were left without protection. And we don't have to protect them, and we don't have to worry about them. All we have to do is be ourselves, and they're going to get in alignment. Period. And I know some don't believe me. They think we got to be gunned up like, you know, the Black Panthers and everything. You know, high honor to the Black Panthers, but we don't need all that. Are we going to have guns at some point? We may, but only after the spiritual work is done so that we know we don't need them. But in the interim, we must govern ourselves. We are our own military. And when we're our own military, we're not going to have any problems. If October 31st was any indicator, and I know it is, we were so involved in what was going on spiritually that we didn't even have time to have incidences. We didn't. And anything that would have come up, we would have been able to handle it. Because we're only dealing with Moors. We're not dealing with citizens. We don't have to police them. They got their own police. And again, the only reason that they have been getting away with guns is because we consented not to be the militia for ourselves, not for them, for ourselves. We didn't govern ourselves. We weren't the militia for ourselves. And when we're the militia for ourselves, we don't need guns anyway because we're not going to be shooting each other. We're not going to be shooting each other. We're going to sit down and talk like heirs. That's what we're going to do. Law governs all events, not guns. So that's the only reason that they've been running around with guns, and they know they're going to have to give them up now that we're standing. And over the next few weeks, just because we do need to go through the exercise of the militia piece, because we have to be in alignment with the law before we can give it to anybody else. We're not under the Constitution, that one, that we gave them. We put them under it. But we do have to be in alignment with what we told them. In order to be a free state, which we are, because state is state of mind. In order to be a free state, it is our right. And our prophet talked about that briefly. Yes, in the chat, Justice Jeremore said we must stop looking to them for settlement of anything. It's our estate. We should be able to come together and work our agreements out. We don't need guns for that. Do we? No, we don't. I'll answer that. It was actually kind of like a moot question. We don't need guns for one another. And we're governing ourselves. That's what self-governing is. They're not ourselves. We're ourselves. And so the Second Amendment was saying we are that. And when we're that, they don't need guns. The citizens, they don't need them. They don't need guns. And our ancestors didn't have them. They were too primitive for us. Guns were way too primitive for us. Way too primitive. But again, when you see where this is all going, it's going to make sense later on down the road for some who feel like we got to be gunning up. We don't have to gun up. If the Albion foreign Christian hybrids are showing you guns all the time, then you know that's not what you need. If they're showing it to you, it's not the right way. Not the right way. And that's all they ever put in all of their meetings. I mean, their programming. Now, we're going to go through the militia, the exercise of being a well-organized, a well-regulated militia. Well-regulated. That means self-governing. We don't have to worry about them. I'm telling you, and I've said this many times, I'm going to keep saying it because it's necessary. When we're in alignment and we know who we are and we're peaceful, they will get in line and do what they're supposed to do. They're doing it already. We don't have to look at them. We don't even have to pay attention to them. We have to stand and stay squarely focused on nation building. And every now and then they put an agent or two, and I don't even want to say agent because that's not even the right word. They're not even effective, so that's not an effective word, agent. But they'll put Moors up there with guns all over the place. And I'm not calling them agents because they're not agents, they're just Moors who don't know that they don't need that. Well-regulated militia. That means that they, foreigners, won't have a need for guns because it's not constitutional. They don't have the right to bear arms. They're not a well-regulated militia, and they're not a free state. We are. We are that. We are the people, in red in all lowercase letters, meaning the heirs. We are not animals nor corpses. There are no other people until we say they are other people. We get to name that and call it what it is. And the only reason that the foreign colonizers made sure to emphasize guns and killing and war was an attempt to scare us into thinking that all of that had to happen in order for the heirs to stand, which is a lie. They wanted us to believe that if we stood and declared who we are, that it would have to be bloody. It doesn't have to be bloody, and it's not bloody. We're already standing. So that's over. And we see it's not bloody. Not bloody. Not going to be bloody. Our blood is too powerful and too precious to be wasted. So again, they'll put their guns down when we are a well-regulated militia. And a militia, it doesn't say that a militia has to be armed, but we have a right to be. As a militia, well-regulated militia, not as individuals. And that's where the misnomer in that Second Amendment is. The right of the people, that doesn't mean individual people running around with guns on the land. That's not what that means. It means that a well-regulated militia, which is the people, Moors, the heirs, have a right to bear arms. And that with proper training. That's what well-regulated militia means, proper training. And then, are there any questions about that? Because there's a lot coming up in the chat. I love it. Any questions about a well-regulated militia and the right to bear arms? Because no, citizens don't have a right to bear arms on our land. But because we were not doing our job, they have. Islam.
Just one comment about that. I put it in the chat. We are the one. We're not Neo. If you note carefully, Neo becomes the one, but we are the one already. And Sister Stewart is actually making that plain in the Matrix 4 movie, which is supposed to be out sometime December. Interesting.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
That piece of information. I rest.
Beautiful. Very beautiful. We're looking forward to that because she's telling our story. Because she's one of us. She's looking at Akashic records all day long with that. She pulled that straight from the Akashic records. I want to say something real quick also about the Third Amendment briefly. Because, see, there's been a lot of misnomers about a lot of stuff. And the direction that we're going in, all of that stuff has to come to a halt. And let me preface this quick discussion by stating that all U.S. citizens in capital letters and black ink are enemy combatants and military operatives. That's what this whole mass thing is about, is that the corporates have unleashed their little army of mask wearers onto our land to try and tell us what to do. That's the street level operatives, because they're not a military, because they're not a free state, they're corporate operatives, commercial mercenaries. And that's what makes them an enemy combatant. However, we have no enemies, they're subjects. When we are in our rightful place, they're subjects. If we fight back and forth with them, then they become enemies, and that's not where we're supposed to be. That's not where we are. Yes, in the chat, bandits need masks, not people, and they've already proven that the masks don't keep anything from infecting the animals. That's already been proven. So the third amendment says, now this is where property is concerned, because that's where we're at. The third amendment says, no soldier, no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Now, those little mask wearers out there and the ones, at the door, ma'am, you need a mask. I'm not a ma'am. You need the mask. I don't need the mask. Ma'am, you need a mask. That's a corporate operative. That's a U.S. citizen, clearly a U.S. citizen. And not a single one of them, those soldiers in the army of the Lord, let's just put it that way, and that's Lord in all capital letters. None of them in time of peace. Now again, we've declared peace on our land. We proclaim peace, and that's what we mean. Not a single one of them is supposed to be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. And that's owner in red in all lowercase letters, which is us. That means they can't even live where they're living without our consent. In times of peace, they're not supposed to be there anyway. We're not at war. This is peacetime. We proclaim peace. And that's another support mechanism that will be used where property possession is concerned. And where it says, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. When they say to be prescribed by law, that means that the law hasn't spoken yet. Well, it's not wartime. So we're still on part A of that. You don't have our consent to quarter in any house on our land. You don't have our consent for that. And we're not going to give it. We're not going to give it until we're ready. And until every more there on this landmass and on every landmass is properly domiciled. So look at that third amendment. See, we know that the third, anything that has a third article or section or amendment and a ninth article or section or amendment, we need to look at those closely because it's going to tell us more about the estate. We do not consent to any soldier in this time of peace being quartered in any house on our land. We're putting that on the public record. We don't want war on our land. We don't. So we're stating that for the public record, on the public record, and letting the public record show today, right now, from all of the heirs. And if there are any heirs who agree with me, let me hear you say Islam.
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 The heirs have spoken.
Islam, Grand Rising.
Yes, the heirs have spoken. You hear it on the public record, and this is going on the public record today. The heirs have spoken. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the flag, the continental flag? You shared with me about our ancestors saying there will never be war on our land, and that's the flag.
Yes. So the continental flag, it has a cedar on it, an evergreen. It's a cedar. And that evergreen that's on there is a symbol that when our ancestors were previously, they were starting to fall, and there was some back and forth going on, apparently. They decided that they were going to put in place the great law of peace, and they were going to bury all weapons under an evergreen tree. And they said, when you see this evergreen tree, it is the symbol of peace on our land. And these weapons will stay buried under the evergreen. And as long as the tree is green, the weapons will stay buried. And it's an evergreen. So it's never going to not be green. It's always going to be green, so we won't need the weapons. Okay? We have the right to bear arms. But let's bear some spirit work first. Let's take care of that first. And then we'll worry about the arms. Now, we are going to do, we're a well-regulated militia already. We're already that. And we're going to be putting out some photos of our uniforms that we have. We're still working on them and putting them together so that we can get your feedback on the uniforms. And, you know, and those who consent to be a part of the Moorish Vanguard can do so, and those who don't, it's okay. You can do other things. Find other ways to use your gifts and talents in the nation. So, you know, we buried the weapons under the tree and then put the tree on the flag, saying as long as this flag flies, we're not going to fight one another. Because that was between us and us. It wasn't between us and any subjects and corporations and corpses and dead people and animals. This was between, it was a compact between the living, for the living, by the living, with the living. And that's why that flag is also at the top of all of our documents. And we'll be seeing more of that flag coming soon. I'm so excited I could just cry because I've been waiting to see that flag manifest, and it is manifesting. And okay, I'm gonna move on so I don't start doing the baby thing again. Again, with regard to the Third Amendment, clearly it says, and I'm going to read it one more time just to make this one point clear. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. Clearly, we already know who the soldiers are because they don't own any property. That's what this is saying. Foreign soldiers, those people don't own anything, so we already know who we're talking to here. Who is it that does not own property? The foreigners. That's who we're talking to, who should not be housed if they're acting in a war manner, if they're doing war actions. Clearly, soldiers do not own property. So who is it that cannot own property on our land? Who has the authority to give consent? We have the authority to give consent or not, because we don't have to consent to that. If they're warring, we don't have to consent to them being housed on our land. And in fact, we don't consent. We just proved that. Who has been existing and eating and partying off of our presumed consent because we didn't open our mouths? The soldiers, the onward Christian soldiers marching as to war. I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. All of that. They sung about all of that in our faces, and we were singing right along with them. Just completely asleep, snoring, in a coma somewhere. But we're awake now, thankfully. And yes, they're crusaders, Justice Yezreel. Yes, go ahead, Justice Yezreel.
That's because we were dumbified.
Yes.
A condition of being dumbed down. Now we are not.
Yes. Yes.
Islam.
Yes.
Islam. Are you?
Islam. Yes, Islam. We're not that anymore. And so now that we're not that, guess what? We're the property owners. We're the heirs to the estate. But you can't be both. And they know that. That's why they want to do a great grand stand and bring in as many of the nations as possible, which is not going to happen. They want to pass the plate so that you can hop yourself in a coffin. So that you can't own property. They want you to deny yourself your right to be the property owner and the heir. And you do that. When they pass that plate and you put something in it, you're saying, I'm in the coffin and I don't own any property and I'm not the heir. Now, some ain't going to like me for that, but that's okay. I'm gonna tell
Islam?
Islam.
That is exactly the same thing that is said when we appear in their pseudo courts or anything where we're summoned or told we must come there to comply with something.
Yes.
That, in fact, is, once we do that, we're acquiescing that, they're in control, and so our people must know this. And there are some listening on here right now who they have braved their fear they had of it, and now they know. And because they have braved that fear, it set the tone for all other Moors. All they have to do is get up and be more instead of being less.
That's
Islam.
You know, this is again why it's so important for us to have these calls and to keep speaking. It's so that our will can be known and it can be on the public record so that no one can say they don't know. No one can say that we consent to soldiers quartering on our land. We just said we don't agree to that. We do not consent, and we're putting that on the public record. So now this is key too. Right here in the Third Amendment, they're sitting up here telling you that they have divided and conquered the Moors. Let me point out how. What does the word quartered mean? What does the word quartered mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means to divide and then occupy by force.
Islam, cut into pieces.
Yes.
Yes, Islam.
It also means to defile by dismembering into 4 parts. Quartering also means payment. And we don't owe them anything. But see, and this is why our Prophet Noble Drew Ali talked about us living near one another. Because if there's a block full of Moors, and then you have someone who has quartered themselves between those Moors, because see, that's why they wanted us away from one another. So they made they sold to some of us that quote unquote American dream of go to college and move out the hood and all of that. They didn't want us living around one another. You know. So when you have a block full of Moors and then you have one who have quartered themselves between the Moors, you already know what's going to happen. Division. Division. And then guess what they'll start doing once they've quartered themselves between us? The minute something happens between us, now we've been doing fine the whole time. We've been working out our differences the whole time. Yeah, we get into some tiffs and tussles, but we work it out, and then next thing you know, we're barbecuing together. You know, all of that. That's how we did things. But then when they quarter themselves in between us, guess what they do? We have a disagreement, and they call the policy enforcers. Don't they?
Islam. I need to say something on that.
Yes, say something, Justice.
Because when you say we had our barbecues, that was what attracted them.
Yes.
They say, oh wow, because, well, you know the rest of it. But we never had barbecues with flesh. We had barbecues with any type of vegetable, fruit, things that grow, things, but never of, and so when we say that barbecue stuff, we have to be define barbecue.
We have to say what we're barbecuing, right? Okay.
Islam.
Well, and all of us are not vegetarians quite yet. We're still coming out of that colonization, you know. So let me speak for let me cover the, bring my other Moors in. We good. We all good. We good. Everybody's good. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Just keep learning. We all gonna keep learning. Okay. So that's what quartering between the heirs. And then we got used to them calling the policy enforcers. They quartered themselves between us on our land and started calling back up. And that's how you know they're the soldiers. I'm going to go ahead and say this because I already know it's true and they know it's true. I have neighbors who are soldiers in the Christian army who have Christian documents, birth certificates issued by the United States Corporation Company that they're living off of.
Yes.
Those are soldiers quartered between me and the rest of the Moors on our land.
Spies.
And you better know that when the policy enforcers, okay, because I told you all about this last year, policy enforcers came 3 weeks in a row. And it was actually around about this time. 3 weeks in a row they came. And how about one of those times that they came, actually 2 of those times that they came, one of the soldiers who ain't have nothing to do with nothing came out of her domicile, or our house, okay? She came out of, because she don't own nothing. And she had to find out what was going on and give her piece of information and all of this kind of stuff, you know, telling. She was being a teller, an informant. But see, you can't inform on the living if you're dead. And I know that I'm not dead. And then, even then, her word don't mean nothing. It ain't worth nothing because she's not one of the heirs. There's no consent from the living. And that's why they couldn't kick the door down. And she can run her mouth all day, but guess what? When it's time for them to get off this land, they're going to come to that door and say, yo, the heir said that y'all can't be quartered on their land. Period. So, and, you know, I can see them already getting ready to pack up and, you know, move out. The ones that are hostile. It's interesting because I used to go through around the area, the territory, and I used to see banners of amity and commerce all over the place. I ain't seen not one as of this week. I'm going to have to roll up through some of the other ways to see if I can see any, if anybody got any up, but they done took those things down around here in terms of the people in the domicile. You know, the people in the domicile used to have them things flying out. They ain't got them flying out now. I don't know what somebody told them. I don't know what you know, I don't know what they've been told about them, but they've taken them down. I don't know why. Not that I consent to them being up. So anyway, but that's none of my business because, again, we don't have to pay no attention to them. They're going to get in line as we stay focused on nation building, and we're going to stay focused on that. We're never going to take our focus off what really matters, which is the heirs, the descendants, the estate, the ascendants, us. They've had their eyes on us the whole time. It's time for us to keep our eyes on ourselves because we've been looking at everybody but us. Now it's time for us to, you know, we deserve it, to look after ourselves, to govern ourselves and each other and assist one another. We deserve that. So, are there any other questions or comments about anything that has been said about the amendments to the Constitution that we gave them? The Constitution is a very powerful document, very powerful. And it's steady pointing to us and saying we're the authority on the land. We're not even under it, but it's saying we're the authority on the land. So we'll have to decapitalize and decolonize it and use it. And that's what we're doing now, is putting it in its rightful place and calling it what it is by our own creation. Just like we said at the beginning of the call, we can look at it and then create it properly and name it what it really is. Now it's a living document and not a dead corpse document. And it's going to say exactly what we intend for it to say. So with regard to property, keep the Third Amendment in mind where your documents are concerned. Just kind of give it some thought. Look into it and make sure that, you know, because that can be used as well where property possession is concerned. Having said that, I believe that's all that we have at this time. We will continue the call. Yes, Islam, Justice Frank. We'll continue the call on Wednesday. And Wednesday, I believe we're going to be on YouTube Live instead of on free conference call, but we'll see how it goes. We'll put it out on social media how we're going to do that. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign original.
Grand rising. Peace and grand rising. Peace and grand rising.
Peace and
Grand rising.
Grand rising to the most powerful people on the planet, the heirs.
Yes, Islam.
Grand rising.
Grand rising.
Islam.
Peace and love, Moors. Islam, here.
Grand rising.
Grand rising. Peace and love, Moors.
Peace and love.
Islam to the Moors.
Yes, grand rising.